is matched by bitter taste as well. The bitter taste of knowing that we had left Israel at such a critical time in its history. The bitter taste of knowing that we had gone west while our hearts and our souls remained in the east. And as I reflect on our 2 weeks in Israel, I'm struck by how much I feel this mixture of bitterness and sweetness. Or as Naomi Shemer wrote in her famous song, Al Kol Ele, Hamar v'hamatok, the bitter and the sweet. There is indeed bitterness in the fact that too many Israelis, the finest, the youngest of Israelis, people, sons, daughters, are being called into battle yet again, just to preserve quiet from rocket fire that has threatened such a large part of the one and only Jewish state. There is the bitterness that the battle is not just to stop rockets from being fired into the air towards Israeli towns and villages, but that it goes deep underground to a sophisticated tunnel system that enables terrorists to evade detection while they plan their next strike. And it allows them to enter Israeli communities with the attempt to commit mass murder. In fact, this morning, some of you may have heard the news that a tunnel network was discovered by the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, that was being prepared for a shocking Rosh Hashanah surprise. The tunnels opened up in the heart of nearby Israeli communities, and the evil plan had been for hundreds of Hamas commandos to leap out in over a dozen locations in Israel on Erev Rosh Hashanah to conduct simultaneous mass suicide attacks. There is the bitterness that our enemy's cynical strategy is to subvert the accepted rules of warfare. As Prime Minister Netanyahu described it last week, while we use missiles to protect our citizens, they use their citizens to protect their missiles. Terror tunnels were carefully built under schools and hospitals and private dwellings. Rockets are routinely stored in and launched from UN schools, hospitals, and private homes. The supplies that were allowed into Gaza to build up their economy and help their people were instead misappropriated by their leadership to build rockets and tunnels in an attempt to destroy us rather than to build themselves up. And friends, there is bitterness as we look at the response of the media and of so much of world opinion. Whether out of pure anti-Semitism or sheer stupidity, so many have been quick to create moral equivalences between Israel and Hamas, or worse, to blame Israel alone for a tragedy that is the sole responsibility of Hamas's evil, cynical, fundamentalist, totalitarian kleptocracy. Hamas, the anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, anti-gay, anti-woman, anti-American, anti-Western terrorist group, they are responsible. As I'm sure many of you are, I am embittered and enraged as I watch and read news reports and articles from generally reliable sources that are so terribly misguided. And then there is the predictable idiocy of the UN, which has become customary to refer to here at Temple Bat Yam as the United Nothing. Yet along with so much bitterness, so much mar, there is matok, there is sweetness also. In our time in Israel, which was too short, I was struck once more by the abundance of good news that there is to tell about our one and only Jewish state. 66 years after Ben-Gurion proclaimed the state of Israel, the country has become a bastion for justice, democracy, and ingenuity, in stark contrast to the backwardness of its neighbors, who are descending yet again into the depths of the Dark Ages. The road system they have today, if you haven't been there recently, is as sophisticated as we have in Southern California, except it's new. So it's not in need of terrible repair. There's a futuristic light rail system in downtown Jerusalem. And one of the most amazing surprises I experienced was avoiding gridlock in Haifa on the way up the coast by going through the incredible tunnels that have been built under Mount Carmel. There is great sweetness in being reminded that while our enemies build tunnels to destroy and kill, our tunnels are built for progress and industry and to make life better. And there is sweetness in knowing that Israel's high-tech know-how, along with financial backing from the United States, has built the most sophisticated and life-saving technology ever invented. Israel's Kippat Barzel, the Iron Dome. It's meant that the vast majority of Hamas's rockets have been successfully intercepted and prevented from hitting their desired targets, civilians. Remember, we use missiles to protect our citizens. They use their citizens to protect their missiles. And there is sweetness in knowing that Israelis and Jews around the world are united in this moment of challenge. Despite our usual disagreements we're so famous for, the vast majority of Israelis, the vast majority of world Jewry understand that this is a milchemet mitzvah, a necessary war, a war of defense, a war of defense to root out an evil that is jeopardizing the lives of Israelis, and for that matter, Palestinians also. We are united in saying that enough is enough. We, like any people, have the right to live within peaceful borders, and we, like any people, have the right to defend ourselves from those who in statement and in deed are hell-bent on our destruction. And friends, there is sweetness in the resilience of Israelis. Despite the constant rocket sirens, frantic trips to bomb shelters, and call-ups for reserve duty, life goes on in Israel. Parents tuck their children into bed at night. Summer camps continue, albeit in different locations. People go to work. Cafes, markets, and restaurants in Tel Aviv are bustling, and the beach is packed. So indeed, there is much bitterness, but there is also much sweetness in Israel today. There is mar v'matok. And we here in the West, whose hearts are in the East, we stand with Israel. We stand with Israel against Hamas and against Iran and its nuclear ambitions, and against all those who wish Israel harm. We stand with Israel as Israel fights for peace. And at this challenging moment, we turn to the words penned by the late Naomi Shemer, a song that I mentioned just a few moments ago, that many regard as Israel's second national anthem, Al Kol Ele, on these things. The words can be found on page 651. I encourage you to follow along and read the beautiful translation at the bottom of the page. And please rise. Page 651.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת שמור אלי הטוב, על האש המבוערת, על המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים, על כל אלה ועל כל אלה שמור לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על אתה כל נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה. שמור לי על זה הבית, על הגן החומה, מיגון מפחד וקל מלחמה. שמור על מה שיש לי, על האור ועל הטף, על הפרי שלא הבשיר עוד ושנאסף, על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש והעוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על אתה כל נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה.
Page 377, we remain